Hey YouTube. Alright, so today is Thursday, the 2nd, I believe. June 2nd or June 3rd. But it's probably about 6:30 or so now. So I've been over here for about an hour, hour and a half. And so the other day I was able to get the engine bay all power washed and got it degreased and degrimed as best as I could. So I pulled this master cylinder and the ABS pump back off so I could get the AC line in. So now the AC line is on, and I just need to put this one bolt in right here. That bolts it to the frame rail right here. And got all this back on. Everything's bolted down. Got the AC condenser in. The AC line is hooked up to the condenser. I just need to put that little black plastic clip on it that clips around there, right there. Went ahead and got the radiator back in, got the clamps on, got them wired up, got the fuse box back in, and that's about the progress I've made over here today. Oh, and I got the front mount heat exchanger on. I still need to get one more screw in it right here, but for whatever reason, I don't know if this metal is just super fucking thick. I mean, it doesn't really seem that thick, and these are sheet metal screws, like, just for doing metal buildings. The exact same screws as what's in the wall over there. But I know I got one on the inside, on the bottom side of the, yeah, I got the one on the bottom here, and then I have one going through this way, right here in the middle. And I don't know if that's the way that everybody else has mounted theirs, but I know I want those two nipples that come out of that side. Like, I want them to be on that side because that's where the intercooler is going to be. It's facing this way. So I just want them to be able to come from right there, which will be sitting right in here somewhere. So I just want them to be able to go down to the pump down here, in here, come back out, and then have my fill tube back into the engine there. So that's pretty much how I want to be able to run the intercooler. And you can't really, yeah, you can kind of see that bracket. And I do not know what this green plug is. I don't know if that was a like a crash bar sensor or what. But yeah, it was in this front air dam, and this goes to that sensor there. I'm not really sure what that is, but there was a couple of guys that said they just hacked up their air dam. A couple guys said they just removed it. So I just took it off. Not really a big deal to me. So, but yeah, I still got to get the transmission cooler mounted in right back in here. And but man, it's coming along. Like, I'm very happy with the progress so far. And that's really probably about as far as I can really get today. I mean, I could probably put in like the coolant tank, but it's got to come back out. And so that's about where I'm at so far. I don't want to put the front bumper or anything back on because I still got to mount that transmission cooler in there. And I want to have the front bumper off whenever I install the engine and trans, just so if I do have to use a cherry picker, I can actually get it a little bit closer and I'm not rubbing up right here on the nose of the new bumper. See, it's already kind of got a couple marks there, so I'm not trying to damage the bumper any more than I already have, and any more than what the previous owner has. So, but man, yeah, I'm very happy with the progress so far. So not a whole lot left. I do still need to change out this water pump, and I do still need to pull the engine and transmission back off the subframe and separate them. And I actually ordered the EGR block-off plates today. So I've got the one that's going to go in here on the lower intake, and it'll delete this whole tube. And then I got another one that's going to bolt on right there to the rear exhaust manifold. So I can just delete this whole thing completely. Then I won't have heat right here next to my fuel line. And that'll just make me a little bit happier. So I guess I'm deleting the EGR. So yeah, everything's going to have to come back off before it can go back in the car. But it's not really that big of a deal. So I'm making progress. I'm happy. The car is clean. Well, a hell of a lot cleaner than it was. And so yeah, so now it's just I gotta pull this back off, separate the two, pull that whole EGR off, get the block off plates on, which I'm sure I'm probably still gonna have to pull this back apart just to put the block off plates on, because either way I can't get to the bolt with that tube being made the way it is. But that's alright, not a big deal. It is coming along. So pretty much my plan right now is just to try to get this thing going. And so I want to try to finish this first. And my buddy David, he's trying to get a job. So I'm going to let him drive the 97. For now, I told him just don't beat on it because I really don't want to blow up the motor. Like, I need the engine for the Grand Am. And like I told him, if he blows up the engine because he's dogging on it and, you know, beating the hell out of it and shit, and the motor fucks up, he's going to have to buy me another engine. So I'm just going to let him drive it for now. And then once I get this done and I'm ready to get the Grand Am moved over into this storage, then we'll worry about getting the engine pulled out of the 97 for the Grand Am. And then in the meantime, we can also start ripping all the stuff out of the parts, the 98 parts GTP, so we can get the dash, the headliner, the steering column, all the stuff that he's going to want for the 97. And then I can go ahead and pull that subframe if I want. We can pull that other transmission out. You know, we can get all the rest of the parts out of it. I can pull that engine back out. We can start getting it torn down. So then it'll be a block on a stand, and we can get it cleaned up and painted and all that again. And just get it looking fresh. And we still have to tear it apart, and we've got to get that broken head bolt out. It's like this I want to say it's the top one. No, it's the very bottom one, underneath the exhaust manifold right there. And yeah, so we're definitely going to have to get that out of his other engine. So that way, once I get the engine out of the 97 and get it all torn apart, then we can order a gasket kit. And then once the block's all cleaned up and repainted, then we can start reassembling with all the heads and the lower intake and supercharger and everything that's on the 97 engine now, because I'm not using all that. I'm going with the Gen 5 and the North Star throttle body and all that. So I already have Gen 5 heads. I have a Gen 5 supercharger and all that with the ZZP pulley and with everything over there. So pretty much I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be using any of that. So you can have this engine. You can have all the parts that are on the engine in the car now. And that'll make you a top swap engine. But yeah, so I know it's a long, complicated process, but for him to get the car for free, or well, for $100 pretty much, you know, that's the way he's getting it. He's getting the old engine with all the parts off the 97 engine, and we're going to have to build it and make it work. But for now, for like a week, I'm just going to let him drive it. But I've got to get all these tools loaded up, and I've got to go to the house, and I have to pull the driver front lower control arm, like the whole hub assembly. Like I'm taking this whole knuckle with the wheel bearing, with the outer tie rod, and the whole lower control arm with the ball joint, because I don't want to damage any, because like the 97, it's got brand new lower control arms and brand new outer tie rods on it, new sway bar links, so I have to pull the sway bar links. But I mean, that doesn't really damage anything. But whenever you use a pickle fork and you pull the ball joint or the outer tie rod, it always fucks up the boot, and then you got a busted junk part. And I don't want to do that since it's going on the 06. And so he said he's fine with driving the 97 with the bad ball joints for now, as long as we can get the outer tie rod situation figured out so the steering is correct. Because right now, I don't know what the deal is between the inner and outer tie rod, but the inner tie rod that was on the 97 with the outer tie rod that came off the 06, there's just, I don't know, I think the one that was on the 06 is like a little bit shorter, like to here, so the threads it's not having as much threads in there, and it's just like 2 or 3 threads holding it on, and that's as far as I can get it. And the wheel, like the driver's or the passenger side wheel will be straight, and the driver's side wheel will be like turned out a little bit. or maybe it's vice versa. It's vice versa because I changed the passenger side already on the 06. So that's, yeah, it's gonna need control arms and ball joints, but for now I can use the old shit off the 06, get the 97 to where it's at least drivable. I told him just don't drive it on the highway and just not the dog the shit out of it. So yeah, I'm getting all this stuff loaded up and gonna head over to the house so I can start pulling that control arm and that whole assembly off and swapping them around between the 97 and the 06. And then as long as I can get everything done tonight by like 9 or 10 o'clock, the next few hours, then I'll go ahead and let him take the 97 tonight, and so that way he'll have it to go job hunting. We was driving around the other day, he was riding with me, and we passed a place called Grand Prix, and they sell car parts and stuff like that. And so he's going to go apply there, and then he got a couple of other applications for a couple other places. And so he's pretty much, he just wants to get a job and start making money again. And I guess they're about to put his grandma in a retirement home. And that's what he's been doing for the last like 5 or 6 years, is just watching his grandma. Because she has Alzheimer's, so she forgets stuff a lot. And she'll like randomly wake up one day and think it's 20 years earlier. And like, where's my car? And so it's, I don't know, she's a nice old lady, and she just gets confused and she can't remember, and it's not her fault. But now his mom has retired, and so now his mom is actually able to stay home and watch his grandma now and take care of his grandma. So now he actually kind of got his life back and his freedom back. And so I told him, like, bro, I want to help you out. And so he wants to get a job. I even offered him trying to get him a job working with me doing roofing. And he just didn't really seem to want to do that. Right now he just mows yards for a little, $20 a yard. And he don't make very much money, but, I'm just trying to help him out because he's always been a good friend to me. And yeah, so that's the plan right now. So I pretty much made the progress I'm going to make on the 07 today. And so now I'm just going to get this stuff loaded up and put the rest of the stuff back in here, and I'm headed to the house. So I'll give you guys another update whenever I make it over to the house. Hey guys, alright, so I've made it home. I'm working on the 06. And so I've got the driver front wheel off, because I've already changed the passenger side. And everything looks good. The boot on the outer tie rod looks fine. I know the sway bar is broke and I have it clamped down. It fucking rusted apart right there. Brakes look good. Rotor looks fine. So axle is looking pretty good. Ball joint looks fine. Don't see any damage. I had the wheel bolted down and I couldn't get the wheel bearing to move at all. Couldn't get the ball joint to move like the passenger side did. The only thing I'm seeing is the axle in here is slinging grease on the transmission and on the tie rod and the boot and the subframe. Because all this was clean. I just power washed it before I put this engine and trans in here. And I power washed the transmission, and that grease was not on there. So since I've clamped this boot on with that clamp there, I guess I didn't do a good enough job. So I'm gonna go out on a wild guess and say that axle is probably my clinking that I'm getting when I'm turning. So it's not the ball joint, but I'm still probably gonna go ahead and swap them around anyways. But I'm not gonna do it tonight because it's already dark as fuck. And so yeah, I'm probably not gonna do anything about it tonight. And then I did notice that my fitting on the transmission cooler line right there is leaking. So I'm gonna have to pull that fitting out and put a new O-ring gasket on there and then tighten it back down, which is no big deal. And yeah, so I've got to fix that power or that transmission cooler line, and then I'm gonna have to swap out this axle, which I guess oh man, I can't even use that axle because that's a supercharged axle, and I've already sold the driver's side one. Oh well, no, that was on this car. Yeah, it's a supercharged axle, so that won't work without me disconnecting that boot again, and that's not going to solve my problem. So now I'm going to have to get another driver's side NA axle, which is okay. I'll get a new one, but I'm still going to take the lower control arm with the ball joint and the knuckle and the wheel bearing, because the 97 on the driver's side has that brand spanking new wheel bearing I put on. So I'll just keep this rotor and these brakes and swap the knuckle with the bearing and the outer tie rod. And I'll probably end up swapping the whole sway bar, since I've already replaced the one on the 97. And the one on the 97 isn't broke like this one. And yeah, so I'll probably end up swapping the whole sway bar and this whole knuckle and wheel bearing. I'll have to get another axle and the lower control arm. And then I'll have to fix the transmission cooler line. But I think for now I'm just gonna put the wheel back on and drive it to work tomorrow, and I'll deal with it this weekend because tomorrow is Friday. And I might go ahead and go jack up the 97 and take the wheel off on the passenger side, and I want to swap out. I have another outer tie rod that like right here where the threads are on this outer tie rod right here, it has the hole in there for the cotter pin. And so on this, like this one is fine, but the one that's on the 97 right now is a factory one, and it's just worn the fuck out. And like I said earlier, it's shorter than these for whatever reason. It's shorter. So I have another one that I'm going to swap back out, and it's a little bit longer, but it's a used one. And I took the nut off and then hammered this the threads on this. I just like used my hammer and hammered it up to pop it out of the knuckle, and it like bent it down here, so I had to cut it off. So it's cut off about even with that cotter pin hole in that other outer, but it will still bolt on. Like I said, this one doesn't even have a cotter pin, so I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. And eventually, once David starts working and gets a job and gets some money, he said he's going to order new control arms and stuff for it, and he'll order new tie rods. And I told him we'll get it all fixed up and running like new again. So the car is going to be a big project for him, but I'm going to help him every step of the way, because like I said, I want to do something nice for him. And it sucks I'm having to take the new parts that I bought and put on that car to put on this one, but I mean, that's how it is. Like, I don't want to have to buy all the shit again. And a lot of the stuff that I put on the 97 originally came off of this car, so I had to take it back off and put it back on this car. But it's alright. It's getting there. So hopefully here in the next couple weeks I can have the engine out of the 97. So I've got to work on a roof this weekend, and it's supposed to rain Saturday, so I don't really know how much progress I'm going to make this weekend. If I get some extra free time though, then I'll probably, if it's raining, then I'll probably just go to the storage, and that way I can at least be working on the 07 inside where it's dry, and at least I have a little bit of room in there. So, but yeah, I think now I'm just going to grab the wheel and bolt this wheel back on here and set this thing back on the ground. And I don't know, I might work on the 97 tonight, I might not. I just don't even know yet. But I'll give you guys another update and let you know what I decide to do. Hey YouTube, so it is Monday, June 6th. It's been a few days. I had a pretty busy weekend, so I didn't really do any car shit at all. But so So I'm over here at the house. I ran by the storage. I grabbed all the tools. So I've got all the tools in here. I've already got the jack under the front of the 97. I just busted the lug nuts free on the 97 on the driver's side. So I'm about to pull this, or jack this up. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the wheel off the passenger side. Or no, just the wheel off the driver's side. I'm going to take the whole axle with the knuckle and wheel bearing and everything. So that way I don't even have to fuck with the axle nut. And then that way, like, I know there's no noise coming from that axle, and this axle just seems like it's done and it's slinging grease. So I've got some brake cleaner. I'm just going to spray down where it's been slinging grease on the trans and on the subframe and wipe up what I can. Just clean it up some. And then I'm just going to swap the whole knuckle with the wheel bearing and the axle, and then get it all swapped around, lower control arm, all that. And then we'll go see how the 06 drives. And then once I get everything swapped, I'm also going to swap the outer tie rod on the passenger side with another one that I have that I was talking about the other day. So that way I can just kind of get the steering, like the wheels, as straight as possible. So that way David can daily it for a few days. I was supposed to do that over the weekend, but I just had some stuff come up and wasn't able to do any car work this weekend. So, but yeah, so right now I just got to jack this thing up, get this wheel off, and start undoing the strut and lower control arm bolts, and get the brakes disconnected, and that's pretty much it. And then I can swap everything around. So y'all stay tuned, and I will keep you guys updated once I get this thing jacked up and on some jack stands. Alright y'all, so I've got most of this disconnected. So I've got both my strut bolts out. They're right here. It connects the strut to the knuckle. And you got the sway bar link is disconnected. Have the inner and outer tie rod disconnected. I've got the lower control arm bolts. There's this one here, which the nut on the top is a 7/8, and then the bottom side is this big ass star Torx bit. It is a T55. So I got that out. And then this other strut bolt here, one side is an 18 millimeter, while the other side is right back to the 7/8, which I really think is like a 21 millimeter or something like that, but the 7/8 works to pull it off. So I've got both of those out. Got my strut bolts out. Got the inner and outer tie rod disconnected. I have the wheel bearing unplugged. The sensor is right there. So yeah, now I've just got to swap everything. I just got to use this long pry bar. And what I do here is I wedge this in here like this behind the axle right there, and wedge it on the subframe right here in that little crevice. And so what I'll do is I'll use my foot, and I'll put my foot on the handle like this, so that way I can push, and it pushes the axle out, and then it's not just going to pop out. So I use my little mini sledge here, and as I'm pushing, bam, there it went. Just tap on the side, pops the axle out. Yeah, so that axle's popped out. So now I can pretty much lift this, grab this whole knuckle, and just pull everything straight out. And then I get to jack up the 06 and do the same thing over there. So I'm going to get to work, and I'm going to go ahead and get this pulled off of here, and then I'll give you guys another update, and then I'll start working on the 06. Alright you guys, so I've got the old lower control arm and knuckle and ball joint and everything off of the 06. This is the one off of the 97. I went ahead and just rinsed it off with the water hose, just kind of clean it up a little bit. So I've already got this bolt back in and tight, got this bolt here back in and tight. I've already got the axle stuck back in place. I just have the knuckle to strut bolts just in there. I still got to tighten those two down all the way. Still got to reconnect this outer tie rod, after I wipe it down and clean it up. And then I've got to put my sway bar link back in and put the brakes and rotor back on. And once I get these tightened down, then this side's almost done and back together. And then I just got to throw all that back on the 97 and kind of adjust both of the outer tie rods. I still got to swap the outer tie rod on the passenger side of the 97, so that way I can kind of straighten up the wheels a little better. But yeah, overall everything's going great. Didn't take very long at all. So I'm gonna finish getting this 06 side put back together, and then I'll go back over to the 97 and I'll give you guys another update. So y'all stay tuned. Alright y'all, so I've got the 06 all back together. Tie rod on, sway bar links in, axles in, everything's tight, rotor's on. I've already compressed the brake pads back down to the rotor. So now all that's left is putting the wheel back on this one and then adjusting the tie rod. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt the wheel back on and get this one off the jack, and then go ahead and go back to the 97, and I'll give you guys another update once I get this assembly here bolted back up onto the car. Alright y'all, well the 06 is back together, 97's back together.
Feel a little bit of rubbing on this right side, but I think maybe I just...
Yeah, it probably still needs adjusted a little more on the tie rod. Do a little Bernie. Yeah, doing that, it doesn't like doing just a straight up 180 like that, trying to flip a bitch. There's still something up with the alignment. You can kill it.
Smell that tire.
Oh, I smell it.
It did not want to go from like neutral back to reverse, but I turned around, it was like...
Yeah, I don't know. It's something in that
like
steering is still a little... But man, it runs and drives, so now he's going to have something to whip for a little while until I can get the 07 done and really need to pull this engine.
I could have parked the wheel straight.
Oh, it's alright.
No, the alignment
I'm still going to have to move it. I know whenever I turned around, it was like it's
like
binding.
It's hitting the fender liner or something.
I don't know. I think they're just not perfectly... It probably needs an actual real alignment, you know, on a machine, not just eyeballed. But it's okay. It's together. It runs and drives. So now he's got some wheels, and I just need to finish adjusting the inner and outer tie rods because both of my front wheels are like turned in a little bit. So I'm just gonna adjust those out a little bit, set it down on the ground off the jack stands, and then we'll both have a whip. So I'm gonna get this alignment-ish done, this half-ass ghetto eyeball alignment done, and then I'll give you guys another update. Alright guys, so I got my eyeball alignment done. Turned out pretty good. I've already driven it around the block. Actually, steering wheel stays straight, it drives pretty straight. So it's still kind of making that creaking noise, but it is what it is. Got the 97 done. Got its little eyeball alignment. It's alright. It probably needs an actual alignment. And this ball joint's bad, so it needs another control arm. But
I let go of the wheel
it'll get him around.
It tracked good.
So like I said, thanks again, bro, for always being there and helping out.
Oh, you're welcome, man. So, thank you.
Now you got a car. And it's still got insurance on it, and tag's good. So you don't even have to do nothing yet. You can just drive it, and whenever the tag comes due, then you can swap it in your name. And so you still got a little while anyway.
I'm excited.
Hell yeah. So I got all the tools all picked up and loaded up, so
Nice for you.
I'm happy. Car drives well. Actually, the 97 still drives really well. So yeah, we'll just have to see about that, the shifting from second to third thing, and we'll have to drop the pan and see if that fucking
Tube
line, if that tube come out of the fucking valve body in there. And hopefully that's what the issue is. Hopefully that line just popped out and it has low pressure. And if that's the case, then just pop it back in there, throw a new filter, new fluid, new pan gasket again, and fill her up, and hopefully it fucking just kicks on for a while more. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, you guys. So y'all stay tuned and see you guys in the next one.